Expand your mind and enrich your world. It's time for another outstanding podcast from ICRT.
It's been just a little more than a year now since the beginning of the Sunflower Student Movement that saw protesters storm the Legislative Yuan building in protest over a trade in services agreement with China. To mark the one-year anniversary, last Wednesday, hundreds of demonstrators from an array of civic groups marched around the perimeter of the building in a clear sign that they aren't going anywhere soon and that they're planning to continue pressing their demands for increased government accountability. To give us some perspective on what's changed in the last year and what the movement has planned now, we're speaking today to research professor of law at Academia Sinica, Kwai-Chang Huang. He was a member of the decision-making committee that oversaw the protest last year and now heads Taiwan March, one of the civic groups active in the movement today. Kwai-Chang Huang, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me.
So I want to start by asking you, just looking at this really broadly, what would you point to as some of the concrete successes of the Sunflower Movement since the occupation last year?
I think one of the most important aspects of the movement is to awaken the public, to draw their attention on how our government conduct the cross-strait agreement negotiation and why it is so important for us to get involved. And also it awakened the general public to be more actively participating in the discussion and decision-making process of our public policies. I think for the past 1 year, it's obvious that more and more people, especially the young generations, they care about what decisions have been made by our government and how those decisions made related to their lives and their future. And on that front, you can see more and more people, after they realized what is going on in our administration, more and more people get dissatisfied with its performance. It also resulted in a huge defeat of the ruling party in the local elections at the end of last year.
So those successes aside, would you say that any of the demands that the Sunflower Movement put forward have been met?
I think it's very important to realize that one of the central demands raised by the Sunflower Movement is to establish a formal cross-strait agreement oversight mechanism. And the reason it seems that it didn't have any progress is because the Ma administration insists to submit a bill to that effect that we don't really think the mechanism Ma want to establish is helpful for meaningful participation of citizens in the process. So on the other hand, the civic groups collectively support a bill which we introduced ourselves for the parliament considerations. We are hoping the legislature will eventually adopt our version of cross-strait agreement oversight mechanism. And that is why the Congress has not yet made a formal decision on that issue.
Of course, last week, Premier Mao Chi-kwa said that he hoped to see some version of that oversight bill passed as soon as possible. But like you just said, many of these civic groups don't accept the government's version. Could you get a little bit into why you think it's falling short and why you don't think that it would give the kind of transparency that you're hoping for?
I think it's very important to understand that we want to establish a meaningful cross-strait oversight mechanism. Therefore, we insist 5 principles, including the Parliament can have a meaningful review of any agreement signed by the executive branch. And the second is it has to be meaningful participation of people to voice their concerns and their interest in the process. And the third principle is the process has to be transparent enough to allow relevant information to be learned by not only the Congress but also the general public. And the fourth principle is we demand the all relevant materials considered in that process has to be made public. And the final one is we insist the protection of human rights should be the utmost important value in any negotiation of trade agreement by Taiwan and China.
So on what of those points do you feel like the government's proposed version of this law is coming up short, isn't satisfying what you want?
They failed on all 5 principles. That is why there is no way for us to accept the Ma administration's version.
So you mentioned, the fact that some of this legislation that you're hoping for has been stalled for so long, but the political landscape in Taiwan is really changing right now. For one thing, President Ma is no longer the head of the KMT. Now it's Eric Ju. And on the other hand, we're seeing the emergence of lots of new political parties. And a lot of these parties, I think, would probably be more sympathetic to the kinds of reforms that you're looking for. Going forward, do you feel like you might have a better chance of pushing some of these reforms that you're hoping for?
Yes. As you can see the performance of our current parliament, you will feel frustrated by their performance because all important reform bills are not going anywhere in the current parliament. We are hoping for a new legislature to change the political structure of our representatives in the Congress. Since they cannot do their jobs, I think people are ready for a new Congress which is more receptive to the demand and the interest of the people.
Now, it's been a year since the movement, and there has been some speculation that it might be losing some of the energy that it had when the occupation took place. Can you tell me a little bit about the current organization of the groups that are out there now, even just in terms of, what are the major civic groups that are making it up?
Actually, the Sunflower movement involved a lot of NGOs and student organizations. And after the movement, the various NGOs and student organizations continue to devote themselves to different calls on various subjects. Collectively, they form an alliance called Economic Democracy Alliance, in Mandarin called 经济民主联合. And those groups continue to work together to ask for the established a formal cross-strait oversight mechanism. And in addition, they also call for constitutional reforms. Right now, both parties realize it is important for us to have a thorough constitutional reform right now, but where or not this reform could be materialized has yet to be seen.
And I want to talk about some of that because you were, at the demonstration on Wednesday, and you were one of the people that were voicing some of the newer demands that are out there, some of the reforms that you would like to see. Can you tell me a little bit about what specific constitutional reforms you think are necessary?
Actually, right now we are working on to rectify our Referendum Act and the Recall Election Act. And because we observed there is a serious problem in our representative democracy right now. And our Constitution grants people a constitutional right of referendum and recall. And those mechanisms of direct democracy is helpful for us to correct the mistake made in the representative democracy. However, under the current law system, those constitutional rights could not be exercised in reality because those laws put some unreasonable requirements that totally paralyzed the people's constitutional right in those regards. So we asked our Congress to rectify the Referendum Act and the recall election law in order to enable people to exercise their direct democracy rights when the representatives in our Congress fail to do their jobs.
Now, some people that have seen the reforms that you're advocating for have said that these are a pretty major departure from the ways that democratic constitutional governments have been working around the world for the last 100, 200 years. Would you agree that this is a major departure?
No, I don't think so. As you can see, although there is no referendum on the federal level in the United States, you can see a lot of referendums are held in conjunction with elections on the state level. And also, in addition to Switzerland and how to use direct democracy to correct the mistake made in the representative democracy has also become a major concern in many European countries. So I don't think our demands, our reform directions are not consistent with the trend in the international politics.
So it sounds like the changes that your group is looking for are really structural changes to the way the system works. So would you say that the issues that your groups identified last year, were they more a result of just the system itself, or is there a specific set of bad actors that just need to be taken out of politics, and once a new cycle of elections comes, those people will be gone and you can get some new people in there? What do you think is the root that you're hoping to address?
I think the best way to put it is we have bad actors. They exercise their rights in a system which is incapable of preventing them from abusing their powers. So I think both bad actors and deficient system are both involved in the current problem of our democracy right now. So we need to work on both fronts. One is to reform the system, and the other is to replace better representatives in the next election.
Now, I've read a few interviews with you where you've been really reluctant to say whether or not some kind of similar protest is going to happen in the future. But if you could just talk a little bit about what are the key issues that you and other groups like yours are going to be watching that, if some lines are crossed, that would be kind of a red flag that would get some kind of a response from you.
I have to emphasize that I cannot speak on behalf of the entire organization or movement. I can only speak for myself. Personally, I believe if my administrations continued to sign any agreement with China before the cross-strait agreement oversight mechanism is formally established, I don't believe most Taiwanese people could accept that.
So it seems like even after a year, the focus really still is on cross-strait relations would be the main issue that you'd be worried about?
I probably will not put it that way because, as you can see, many civil groups are demanding our government to conduct constitutional reform and also other reforms related to the function and the performance of our democratic system. I think it is not just about a cross-strait relationship, but it has also much to do with our democracy. I believe as long as our democracy continue to be stronger and healthier, and more people can have a say in the decision-making process, we will have a more healthy relationship with China in the future.
Taking the big picture of Taiwan as it is today and the progress that's been made since the occupation a year ago, do you think that the country is moving in the direction that you had hoped it would?
Yes. As a whole, I believe our country is moving toward a direction most Taiwanese people will find it more hopeful than 1 year ago, because more and more citizens are engaged in important public policy discussions nowadays. But I don't think we move fast enough, and especially the Ma administration has yet to take concrete actions to respond to the people's will, and the demands rest in that movement.
And so what do you think it'll take? What do you think the movement will need to do to speed up that process?
I'm not sure we could accomplish that when KMT party still own the majority in our Congress. Personally, I'm hoping for we could have a different Congress next year. After next year's elections, we could have a Congress which is more willing to serve the people's will and interest. At that time, I believe more important reforms could be accomplished by the new Congress people elect.
So are you saying that you think it will be more possible to work with a majority DPP Congress? Is that the party that you think will be more in line with what you're hoping to see?
I probably will not see the DPP majority, but the KMT lost its majority in Congress, because there are new political forces emerging right now. And I hope those new political forces can win some seats in Congress and to work together with DPP to push forward the reform that we demand.
And so you're talking about those new parties that have been emerging recently?
Yes.
And you think that will make the difference to changing the way that the Legislative Yuan operates?
Yes, I believe so.
We've been speaking to Kwa Chang Huang of civic reform group Taiwan March. Kwa Chang Huang, thank you so much for speaking with us today.
So thank you for having me. It's nice to talk to you.
That's it for the show today. As always, we'd love to hear what you thought of the program. You can leave us a comment on our Facebook page or rate and review Taiwan Talk on iTunes. Also want to let listeners of the program know ICRT is launching a new weekly news review show called Taiwan This Week. It's going to be a brief roundup of the top news stories from around the island, hosted by myself, with commentary from ICRT's Gavin Phipps and correspondence from around the island. We're going to be releasing a new one each Friday, and we just got the first one up last week. To find it, look for Taiwan This Week on iTunes, or look for it on the ICRT website and blog. Or to hear the live broadcast, tune in every Friday night at 8:30. We're just starting out making these, and we really want to make it something you're going to listen to and enjoy. So please do tell us what you think by leaving a comment on our Facebook page or the ICRT blog. All right, that's enough announcing from me. Thanks for listening to the show for ICRT. I'm Keith Manconi.